Rozmowa z Andy Wilkins została nagrana w ramach promocji konferencji Zdrowie 5D, która odbędzie się 24 września w Krakowie. All right. Hello, Andy. How are you today?
I'm very well, Piotr. I'm really happy to be here.
So let me start with just saying how grateful we are that you accepted our invitation to be our keynote speaker at the conference. And just for the audience, we are talking about the conference Zdrowie 5D. And the conference will take in Kraków on 24th of September. And thank you for sparing your time today and just giving me a brief answers to some of the questions that I have been pondering about. Because we have spent decades trying to improve the healthcare system, yet costs continue to rise, professionals are under increasing pressure, and it seems like populations are not necessarily becoming proportionally healthier. So I'm just curious, what do you think? What is it that we are fundamentally misunderstanding?
Now, that's a great question, Piotr, and it really is the sort of bigger framing of perhaps what we all need to be focusing on and what the conference will be. Because if we're honest with ourselves, we don't really have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system that only really cuts in when people are already sick. And perhaps the uncomfortable truth is that many of our healthcare systems aren't really failing. They're producing exactly the outcomes they were designed to produce. More treatment, more activity, more pressure, but not necessarily more health. So we keep trying to repair these individual institutions, yet the crisis exists in the relationship between them. You cannot solve fragmentation by making every silo more efficient. We have to think about that in a different way. So the problem is not that healthcare professionals are not working hard enough. It is that we're asking them to compensate for a system that intervenes too late after preventable problems have become human tragedies and expensive crises. So I think Poland doesn't need simply another healthcare reform. It needs to ask whether it understands what the health system really is, and are we reforming the correct system?
Interesting. And when I look at it, I see that we have nowadays extraordinary advances in medicine, AI, diagnostics, and life science in general. So why are these innovations not automatically producing healthier societies?
Good question. I mean, we truly are at the dawn of the greatest innovations in science, medicine, and technology in human history. And a lot of that investment is going into biotech and health-related areas. But if we are to take advantage of this technology, if we simply deploy it, and AI, which is obviously a big one at the moment, into a fragmented, siloed model, then we are not really transforming the system. We're just accelerating the dysfunction that's inside it. Interesting, yeah? So we can predict disease earlier than ever before, but prediction is not prevention if people lack the conditions, resources, and support needed to change what happens next. So technology is not a substitute for systems transformation. It's an amplifier, and it will either amplify coherence, us coming together as a whole system, or it will amplify the siloed, fragmented nature, which is the problem we've got now. So especially with results to AI, which is the big monster in the room, really, the decisive question is not simply what AI can do, it's what kind of health system are we asking AI to serve? And this comes back to the whole system model that we're going to be focusing on.
Okay. We keep talking about system. Seems like a point or key term. You actually argue that healthcare should be understood as a complex living ecosystem rather than a machine. So I'm just curious, what changes when leaders begin to see the system in this particular way?
Well, just building on our analysis here, I think we can often see healthcare systems as they are today, often managed as they were a machine with effective parts and silos. But in reality, that we are all delivering parts of human health. So if we are to orchestrate collective action that makes a difference, we need to see that we're not just silos and machine parts. We're an ecosystem where changing one part actually affects the consequences across the whole. So if we keep thinking like a machine, a hospital can become more efficient while the population becomes less healthy. If we can shorten our consultation times from 10 minutes to 5 minutes, we can be more efficient, but the population will get sicker. So every organization can end up meeting its targets while the whole system continues to fail the people who are part of it. So systems thinking changes that question. Instead of asking who is failing and what's not working, it's what are the conditions that lead to why we're struggling with a sicker population, and what can we do collectively to do something about that? So before Poland tries to fix its healthcare system, it must become capable of seeing the system as a whole, the system it's actually trying to change. And when we see it as a whole, we see how a whole can be greater than the sum of the parts by working more collectively as a system, as an ecosystem.
Okay. So just to close off, if Poland wanted to begin moving from this fragmented healthcare institutions towards a genuine system of health, in your opinion, where should it start? And most of all, who needs to be involved in this transition?
Another great question. If we're going to think about health not just as treating sickness, but how we generate the health of our population, I think that's a broader, bigger, better frame to be looking at this. Poland should not begin with another isolated solution. It should begin, I guess, with a more fundamental question, like what kind of health system, what kind of society does it want to become? Health is really fundamental to the health of a society, as well as the cost incurred to a traditional health system. So the future of health will not be created by the ministry or hospitals or clinicians, life sciences, technology companies, or communities all acting on their own. It will emerge from the quality of the relationships between them as they cohere into a more powerful whole. So really the first task is to bring people together who normally see only their silo or their fragment, to begin to understand and therefore shape the whole. This is a collective action challenge. And I think Poland can learn from the successes and failures of other countries. This is new frontier thinking that is not many countries have made a lot of progress in. And I don't think it should import a healthcare model from another society. Poland's future system of health must be created in Poland for Polish society. So I think this conference that we're talking about, it matters because it's not simply asking how to improve the current sick care system. It's asking whether Poland is ready to imagine and build a fundamentally different and better one. So we need to change how we see the system before we can change the system itself. Ultimately, the goal is not to create simply a better healthcare system. I think it's even bigger. It's to create a healthier society in Poland. And that is a challenge worth participating in.
Wow. I feel like you just poked on some of the very important aspects and points of this huge and very long transformational process. And I just can't wait to hear more. So once again, I'm so grateful that you will join us on 24th of September in Krakow. And then you will share your expertise and experience and knowledge. Once again, thank you very much, Andy.
Thank you so much, Piotr. And I look forward very much to seeing you in Krakow in September.